Hello everyone, welcome back. This is shadowgear6335, doing the review of stuff. Again, I am back, doing a review of Vespa, an updated version, version 3. Original version was really boxy, kind of a one-off mock. Then I made the previous version, which I'm sure most people are acquainted with, and then there's this version, which is crazy not boxy. This is the most bug-like looking mock I've ever made. That might be a lie. I really can't tell you. But this is Vespa, and I wanted to remake her into version 2, the previous form of this, because I'm like, you know what? I think it's really cool to have a bug girl. Let's remake her into something. And I made her into this. And a couple things that made me want to revamp her. One, I felt like she wasn't really bug-like for a girl I called a bug. She looked semi-bug-like, but I don't know. Two, I came up with a couple designs throughout the year, and I finally just put them to pass now after getting out of my funk, and just being like, 11 o'clock at night right before I go to bed, I'm just like, man, I feel like building right now. And so I started working on Vespa, and this was the product of it. So, yeah. And thirdly, this, Ant-Man Final Showdown Lego set that comes with this giant winged ant, and comes with these wings. And these wings really threw me over the edge. I'm just like, man, I really want to pick up that set just to get these wings. But I will get to that in a little bit. So I'm going to cover the things that are different about her. There's a lot different about her to begin with. Pretty much an entire revamp. So it's going to be not a long one, but a pretty an average-sized review. So let's start with the legs, as I usually do. There's a big change with the legs. So the color blocking with this mock, I experimented with. I wanted to see how well it looked. I think it turned out pretty alright. The color scheme on this mock, with the exception of gray, is the same color scheme as Toa Madanui. Toa Madanui, for those of you who don't know, was the last Titan set to come out in Bionicle G1. It was a giant version of Madanui with the golden Ignika as a face. And, well, people didn't really like that mock for more reasons than one, but it was primarily the color scheme of having Q-Orange, yellow, and gold mixed in, outside of him being hollow. So I kind of did that with this mock, but I blocked it out. So overall, the torso and the hips and the head all contain black and gold. Strictly black and gold. And then the upper legs and the upper arms consist of Q-Orange, and then the lower limbs have nothing but yellow, with black being throughout the entire mock. And I think it's different. I don't normally see color blocking like that. I thought it was cool just to be like, let's go from having a lighter shade on the outside, moving inward towards the body, to having a darker, more pearlescent shade of gold. And I think that really works. I think it's a rad-looking color scheme. But, again, moving back down to the legs, to be honest with you, probably my favorite part of the mock are these legs. The feet in particular, I love a lot. I love the way these look. They're not the most stable. I will say that. They are not the most stable feet in the world. Primarily because these little toes right here can kind of just move up. There's no real friction. But I like the little feelers. I like the way that looks a lot. And the curve of the Exoforce arm, I think that it's a cool way of just taking a hand connector and just seeing what you can wrap around it to see what you can get out of it. And they're limited. The feet are pretty limited. I mean, you can't really move them forward all too much. I mean, but I don't know. I think it looks perfectly fine the way it is. Then you have the lower legs themselves, which I like the angled, not necessarily digitigrade look, but more so just kind of slanted it is. I mean, if I wanted it to be a straight leg, I think it would look fine the way that is, but I just like not the full-on oh man, look at that crazy bug leg. Just kind of a slight little angle to it to give the appearance of that look, but also not hindering it to that crazy extent. And also little spikes on the back here. I just love the way this looks a lot. The striped look and just beautiful. The upper legs, as well as the torso, are one of the few things that I kept the same because I really didn't feel like there was anything wrong with them. I felt like they were perfectly fine. They still have the issue of being limited. I mean, she can't really move her legs out all that much. I mean, let's try and do this live. Yeah, it's the best you can do about moving her leg outward. But I think that's okay. I think that's This is perfectly fine for posability. She can move her leg forward and back and have this leg pose in all the crazy ways it can. Again, she's not really built for like, hey, let's do crazy stop motions with her, but like she's built for just to look like a cool MOC, so I like that a lot. I got a couple complaints with this next bit, but I think it's not only funny, but I think it's a cool use of the part. So if I move around to her butt, to her thorax, move these wings up, we have the golden skull spider mask used as a thorax. And I think it's funny. I don't know. Like, it's not played off to be a joke, but I figured, like, what do I want to use as a thorax? Do I want to use one of these curved shoulder pieces, again, like I did in the original? I don't want to have a small little stinger like I had on the second version as well, so I thought this was cool. If you look in the underside, it's all hollow. There is nothing under there. Completely my fault. I could put something there, but I decided not to, because I am a dum-dum. But I like the way this looks. I like the whole kind of curved aspect of it. And then last minute I kind of add these golden Exoforce arms to go around towards the front and give her like these little faux stingers right in the front. I like the way that all looks together. Torso is kind of the same. The back of the torso is the same structurally, but the chest is completely different. I had no issues with her having a big blocky chest, but it didn't necessarily look all that feminine. So I decided let's make a chest. However, I decided instead of using Nuva boobs, instead of using anything else, I tried to use System like I did with Circuit. And with Circuit, it's very stable. It's very nice and nicely built. Here, it's a bit finicky. However, though, the look of this I think is really cool. I like the whole like having these little like sand bucket handles used as like this nice little like bikini shape. I like the way that looks here, little crest, little golden round crest thing in the middle. But the issue with Poseability with that is if you try to move her arm, it kind of starts falling apart. So it's connected by that one single little stud there. And I found different ways to make this more of a stable chest, but it also makes it look a lot more blocky than it already is. So in the future, I'll probably think of something, but as for the moment, I thought like, hey, you know what? That's one little limitation, but I don't think it's that much to really change it. So it's not that big of an ass ache. So just the way this looks alone, I like the way that is. I think it looks really cool. And I guess while we're here, let's talk about the wings. The design and the way these wings are connected are the exact same as the Ant-Man set. I just used little black double plus lift arms instead of using the blue that the set used, and connected them with two long axles instead of the 4 that the set uses. I had a couple complaints about the way it's connected on the back, though. I mean, you can tell from the back here it's connected by using 2 hand connectors. But there's also, there's a big gap here. It doesn't really look all that great. And my logic is, well, her wings aren't going to be up all the time, and it's on her back, and I could add some more stuff back here. But I don't think it's necessary. And also, the way I would try to find a way to connect it would be kind of more of an ass ache than it really is. So I didn't want to do that. It is something a little distracting, though. If you look at her from this angle, there's a big gap right behind her neck. And I don't know, man. I don't think that looks particularly great. But again, it's something I'm not going to be looking at all the time. And in photography, you don't really see that gap all that often. So it's not too big of an issue. Moving on to the arms. Again, the upper shoulders are the exact same. They're still limited in the same way that they can't move out all that much. But they can move in and out a bit. Which I think that help covers, you can't have that joint move in and out at the elbow. So it works with the shoulder being able to do that a bit. So if you want to have her arm across her chest, she can still kind of do it, but it takes a lot more joints than having a single ball joint connection for the elbow. But they're still limited. I like the high shoulder pad look on her. That's why I wanted to keep it, and I thought it mirrored the thighs a lot better as well. Considering they're the only Q2-inch pieces on her, and they're both very similar in terms of shaping, I like the way that looked. And then her lower arms, her arms are pretty much the same, except with a couple exceptions. Similar style of the lower arm as of the lower leg, so you have the little things there, which they could be used as, I don't know, weapons or feelers, I really don't know. And then her hands, which I gave her fingers now. And oh god, her boob fell off. That's not good. But yeah, I gave her fingers, and I didn't want to give her tiny little minifigure arms. I didn't want to give her Exoforce arms because that would look ridiculous. And so I gave her these new little clip pieces with these fingers. And I did the same look on Vanity. And I think those hands look okay on Vanity, but I think it looks way better on Vespa. I think it looks a lot more skeletal, looks a lot more like just sinister. I do think the hands look a little bit big on Vespa in comparison. Like, she's the same scale as Circuit, and Circuit has really tiny fingers. But I also think Circuit doesn't need to have big, giant claws. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call them claws, but I think these hands are big, but I think they work. I think they're really cool if you kind of like hunch them forward like this, and then, you know, your abdomen falls off, and it's really weird. Oh, geez, I don't like putting system in my Bionicle MOCs because everything falls apart because it's Lego. You're not entirely wrong. It just depends on how you build it. So, yeah, I like the arms. I think the arms are really cool. I think they're a really nice complement to the legs, which, it's obvious, right? Like, if you're making really good legs, you want to make really good arms, but sometimes it's not necessarily transferred over correctly. And then we have the head, which is exactly the same, except with a couple differences. A big major fix. I found a particular way to change the head to where it doesn't need to be held together by a rubber band. So it's still somewhat loose. Like, if you jostle it enough, it's going to come apart. But if you shake her around, like shake the baby test, don't shake the baby, it's going to be perfectly fine. And the way that I accomplished that is that I took these little ninja stars, which used to be on the back of her head as kind of like, you know, hair pieces. I put them on the side of the head and kind of clenched them inward to kind of hold that together. And then the little notches that would connect the minifigure arms to the torsos are kind of in those studs there. They're not secure, but it kind of like keeps them in place while this friction's holding everything together. So I get to keep the same head. I like this head a lot. I think it looks cool. I changed the eye color to sand green. It's not like I didn't like the bright Mata green originally, but I think I like the more muted kind of green for eyes. I think it looks a bit more natural. I think it makes a lot more sense than having bright green eyes. So yeah, that's Vespa all around, and I gotta say, it's still somewhat early, I would say. We're about 2/3 of the way through the year, but I will still say my favorite MOC I made this year is Namaste, but I will say my favorite revamp I've done this year has been Vespa so far. I have a couple major ones in the plans, down the pipeline for other characters people really care about. But in terms of revamps, I really like how Vespa came out. I think she looks super rad, and a hell of a lot more like an insect than, you know, she ever did before. So, yeah, this has been ShadowGear 6335. I hope you all enjoyed the review, and have a good day.